Don't let complacency kill your potential. See, complacency is when I settle for an outcome that's beneath my potential. And that's what people do. They get an outcome that's good, not great, but good, and they settle. They say, hey, that's enough. That's sufficient for me. But every time we do that, we get off the path of fulfilling our potential. I define potential as getting better every day. That's why complacency also means getting worse every day. So what's the difference? What's the difference between someone who's on the path of fulfilling their potential and someone who stays complacent? And one of the differences is limitations versus standards. See, a limitation is a mental wall I choose not to climb. And because it's mental, that means I determine it. I set my own limitations. For example, let's say someone takes a math test and they get a 70 on the test. Well, that grade is sufficient, it's good enough to pass the test. However, it's still not a great grade. Nonetheless, if this guy sets a limitation saying, hey, that's good enough for me, I'm not good at math anyway, well, now they built a mental wall that they're choosing not to climb over. Because the reality is they could become good at math. They could get a better grade. But because they are complacent, they're no longer on the path of reaching their potential in math class. One person striving for success while the other being complacent. And the difference is found in their perceptions. Perception is how we choose to respond to what happens to us. So because one person responded in a positive way, they get a better outcome than the other person who responded in a negative way. So how can we have better perception? And the answer is found in what we say. On the other hand, a standard is a mental wall I choose to climb. So same scenario, someone gets a 70 on their test, sufficient enough grade to pass, but still not a good grade. If this guy has a standard saying, hey, I can do better, I want at least an 85, well, now he's climbing a mental wall. And now he's going to get a better outcome because he's not being complacent. Looking specifically at the second example, we can see this played out. He said, I can do better. Okay, that creates a frame. How can I do better? Why can I do better? And by asking questions, we can have an answer. Okay, I can do better in math by studying. Okay, that creates a focus. If I study, I'll do better in math. And that focus forms a belief. Okay, I can get a better grade. I can get the 85 that I want to get by studying. And that creates a different perception of reality. Okay, a 70 is not good, but by studying, I can get my desired grade. Another way to explain this is what we say creates our thoughts, and our thoughts form our beliefs, and we live in accordance with our beliefs. So going back to the second scenario, the guy truly believed that if he studied, he would get a better grade. And because of that, he's going to study. And as he studies more and more and more, he sees progress. He sees some stuff getting better. And guess what that does? That produces a positive reinforcement saying, yo, my belief is consistent with reality. My belief is working out. And that changes his perspective. And that's really the difference between someone who's on the path of fulfilling their potential and someone who stays complacent is their perspective. One person believes they can do better while the other person believes what they have is good enough. And that's the difference between someone who climbs the mental wall and someone who chooses not to climb that mental wall. So my advice is, hey, change what you say, because when you change what you say, you can change your perception, your response to reality, and by consistently doing that, you can change your perspective, which will help you to stay on the path of fulfilling your potential. If you like this type of content, feel free to subscribe. I try to post a short every day, post a long form video every single week. And with that, I also have a book that came out. It's called Controlling the Controllable, How Anyone Can Become Influential. And in that book, I lay out the principles of becoming influential, that if you do, you will become influential, because principles cannot lie. They always work. So check that out on Amazon. And besides that, feel free to check me out next week for another video. And thanks for watching.